What, what song would you like to hear? I'd like to welcome you all this evening. If you want to sit down front, this is like church. There's plenty of seats down here. I know you're enjoying this winter, so we thought tonight's program would have a little fun with some silent movies. And we have Richard Hughes, who'll be down here in a second to get things going. But I just wanted to tell you about a couple of events that are coming up. I know you saw it on the screen, but we have the Harvard's a cappella group is coming on April 6th, and they're terrific. They travel the world giving concerts, so you don't want to miss them. They should be awesome. We also have a World War I exhibit opening up at the Burdette. A lot of great stuff down there. I was down the other day, and it's amazing what's in there. And we're going to start that with an open house on April 11th. And of course, you can come in anytime, Monday, Wednesday, or Saturday, from 10 to 12 to tour it. I think you'll enjoy it. And we're also, as you know, we've been taking trips every September. And this year we're going to go to New York City, if you're interested, on the 24th, 2 nights, 3 days. The highlight of the trip is visiting the 9/11 Museum, which I haven't seen. I'm dying to see it. And also we're touring the city and Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island and so forth. So if you're interested, give us a call at the Burdette and we'll give you the details on the trip. And without further ado, I'll introduce Richard Hughes, who has the silent movie program for us. Richard.
All
All yours.
Thank you very much. That was a run, by the way. That's about as fast as I can run now. I used to run a little faster before. Good evening to everybody. I am in seventh heaven here. What a beautiful auditorium this is. A huge screen in order to view the silent films. All of this technical help that I'm getting here, that usually doesn't happen to me, so thank you very much for that. This evening, I'm going to try to recreate a movie-going experience that people were viewing in the 1920s, the teens and in the 1920s, all silent movies. And then in 1929, everything changed. Those doggone soundies came in and they never left, but that's okay. Silent films were very charming, and I don't know, I just think that they were wonderful. I'll get back to that in just a moment, but I want to tell everybody how I got started accompanying these silent films. Oh boy, about 35 years ago, I was in California. I was taking lessons from a marvelous pianist by the name of Paul Smith. And he was a great bebop jazz pianist, and that's why I was taking lessons from him. During one lesson, though, he just mentioned to me, sort of offhand, that every once in a while he would accompany a silent film at his kids' school, and the kids loved it. Well, most thoughts kind of go in one ear and out the other, but that kind of stuck with me. And when I came back to Massachusetts, I decided to do a little research at the local library. This is the Worcester Public Library, and I found a book called Motion Picture Moods for Pianists and Organists. You know, there weren't any silent film pianists and organists that I knew of. That, you know, the parade had gone by. So the book was my best bet, and it was my musician's Bible. It was broken down into 52 different moods according to Erno Rapé, who compiled this book. Happy music, sad music, chase scene music, gruesome music, children's music. You kind of get the idea. Religioso, 52 different moods. So I practiced a couple of pieces in each mood category. And then I went back to the library, and at that time, I'm talking about maybe 20 years ago, the library still had 16mm films, and they had projectors that you could borrow. So I borrowed all that stuff, brought it back, and started creating scores for these short films, and then created a score for Charlie Chaplin's The Gold Rush, and presented that at my kids' school. They loved it, to my surprise. And that sort of encouraged me to come up with another score. I think it was for a Harold Lloyd film called Speedy. And the same thing happened. And so actually I changed careers from manufacturing to being a pianist, a frustrated pianist. I was a frustrated pianist trying to find a venue. So that's a little background on how I came to do this. This evening, I've got quite a number of films that I'd like to show you. Some are very short, and the longest film is 22 minutes long. The first is a cartoon called Felix All Puzzled, and it's all queued up. The next one is an international newsreel. After that is a Laurel and Hardy movie called Wrong Again. Next is Buster Keaton in 1 week. He's got 1 week to build a house. Next is Charlie Chaplin in The Adventurer, wonderful little film from 1917. And then finally, a sing-along song, Merry Oldsmobile. Now here's the deal. If you sing, you don't have to pay the 10-cent admission price. So I think we're all set. Let's start off with Felix All Puzzled. And typically, when you paid your 10 cents at the movie theater back then in the 1920s, they'd show a cartoon first, and then a newsreel, then a short comedy film, and then a feature-length film. Well, we're not going to do a feature-length film tonight, otherwise you'd never get out of here. But we're going to pretty much follow that format. So we're all set to go with the cartoon. Well, next up is an international newsreel. William Randolph Hearst had his hand in just about everything. He was one of the wealthiest people back then, and he was into films. He made this international newsreel in 1926. So you're going to see a few of them strung together. And these newsreels are anywhere from 30 seconds to maybe a couple of minutes long each. The Pathé Film Company in France came up with the idea for newsreels around World War I. They made some film footage of the war, put them in the can, shipped them over to the United States, and for the first time, people were able to see in motion what was happening during the war. And people liked it, so it continued. In fact, it continued on until the 1950s. So, let's see, I don't see the film yet. What else can I tell you about this? The first film is a little strange, and it has to do with college boys playing polo in a very, very unusual way. I guess they got bored using a mallet and hitting the ball with a small mallet, so they used a huge ball. That's very, very interesting. I'm very surprised that that never caught on. And then it goes on and on. There's a bunch of different newsreels. So it looks like we're all queued up for this international newsreel. Thank you, everybody. Incidentally, that last segment there was filmed in Aldershot, England. And I was doing a performance about a year ago. A lady came up to me afterwards and she said her uncle was a bombardier during World War I, and he was stationed in that town or that city. And she went on to say that bombardiers, they, they weren't like they are nowadays. Basically, in a two-seater bi-wing airplane, the bombardier would get himself seated, and then they'd hand him a bomb, and then they'd take off to a location where they're going to drop the bomb, and when it was in the right spot, he'd just throw the bomb overboard. Things have changed a little bit. Next is Laurel and Hardy. I love this movie. The movie came out around 1927. It's called Wrong Again. And Stan Laurel was actually born in England, and his parents moved to Scotland. His father was a film exhibitor. And Stanley grew up watching all of the films when he was a kid. When he was 16, he decided that he wanted to be in the business. So he tried his best to be in different plays and musicals and things of that nature in Great Britain. And he finally got a chance to come to the United States in a production that Charlie Chaplin was in. Charlie Chaplin starred in it, and Stan Laurel was Chaplin's understudy. Of course, he played other roles too. Well, after about 1 year, the troupe went back to England, but Stanley decided to stay because he figured that he'd make out better here in the United States. There was just more opportunity for him. So he ended up in Hollywood, getting just about any type of work that he could. He was fairly successful. He started off, with two-bit parts, but then he got to make some two-reeler films. Those are about 20 minutes long, starring Stan, and he was doing pretty well. Well, he decided to sign on with Hal Roach at the same time Oliver Hardy did, and it was Leo McClary, a director, who put the two of them together, and it was just a marvelous thought that he had. Basically, well, I should tell you just a little bit about Oliver Hardy. He was born in the Atlanta, Georgia area, and his introduction to show business was when he was a teenager, he would stand next to the screen. This is in the early teens, and he would narrate the film. He would explain what was going on in the films. At that time, the films weren't too clear as far as what was going on. So some theaters thought that they needed somebody to help them out. And then afterwards, he had a marvelous singing voice, and then he would lead the group in a sing-along song of whatever popular tune was popular in that day. Anyway, Oliver made his way into films, but he wasn't terribly successful until the two of them were paired at the Hal Roach Studios. And then they started making films together, and magic started to happen. It's hard to determine who was the straight man and who was the comic, because they kind of changed roles, which is kind of delicious to watch. But in any event, there were a couple of numbskulls for sure. And between the two of them, they didn't have a half a brain. And I guess that's what was so much fun about watching them. So the movie's all queued up. I'd like to show this to you now. They were really wrong, as you'll find out. You might have seen a piece of artwork entitled Blue Boy. It's a very, very famous painting. They confused a horse with the painting, if you can believe that. So.
That was pretty good, huh? We're going to take a minute and give away some money. We have a 50-50 raffle. Richard, do you want to draw the lucky ticket? It better be mine.
Let's see, Mabel, you're the one who gave me the $5, right? Just kidding. Here it is.
All right. It is 617-528. Somebody over there? No? 617-528. Come on, there's not that many in here. Huh? You can't hear me? Oh, you don't want it?
Donate to the society, $50. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. I didn't hear it. Thanks, Richard.
Boy, oh boy. I'm going to play that song, Mary. Is that your name, Mary? Wow. Thanks, Mary. All right, moving on. The next short comedy film stars Buster Keaton in 1 week. Buster was a very unusual human being. He was born in the middle of a cornfield, in the middle of a cyclone in Pequot, Kansas, around 1895. He was part of, well, his parents were part of a traveling acrobatic act, and that's how he came into the world, and that should have been a sign of things to come. When he was 6 months old, first of all, his name was James Keaton Jr., named after his father, but when he was 6 months old, he fell down a flight of stairs, and of course he cried his head off, which is probably a good sign. Houdini was part of this traveling roadshow. He ran downstairs and picked him up, and he said to Joseph Sr., he said, "Boy, that's some Buster your son took." And that's how he got the name Buster Keaton. When he was about 3 years old, his parents decided that he should be part of their roadshow. So, 3 years old, you don't know too much. What they did is they rolled him up into like a medicine ball, and they started throwing him around on the stage. And then sometimes they'd throw him out into the audience, and the audience would throw him back, and sometimes he landed on his head, but he always smiled. At that age, he even knew that if he kind of gave the audience a deadpan expression, they laughed even harder. He learned that at age 3, 4, 5. And where was I going with this? The child labor laws were going into effect then. So he was actually reported, or the parents were reported to the police for mishandling children. Of course, nothing ever happened of that. His parents moved around a lot, so therefore Buster really didn't spend much time in school. In fact, he spent 1 day in school when the parents were in one town for a few weeks. They brought him to the elementary school, and that day, Buster turned the classroom into an audience, and he did performances the whole day. So at the end of the day, the teacher and the principal were at the front door saying, "No, Buster is not allowed to come back tomorrow." So he spent exactly 1 day in public schools. But he was taught by the best, Houdini and his parents and all of these other really, really talented people, and he absorbed so much from them. So that was Buster's beginning. He became friends with Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, and at that time, Arbuckle's contract was sold by Joseph Schenck, a big name in films back then. Buster was able to move in to Fatty Arbuckle's studio. They had the camera people in place, they had script writers in place, and Buster was extremely talented, so he started making films. And one of the very first films he made in his new studio was 1 Week. And I'd like to set up this film. Back in 1920 at Sears, Sears and Roebuck Company, you could buy a house kit for maybe $1,500. So that kind of gave the script writers an idea. So they decided that they're going to have Buster build a house from a kit. Of course, there was a jealous rival who changed the numbers on the boxes, which made it really difficult. And things got worse, as he got into building the house. The scriptwriters thought, great, we've got a good beginning, now let's come up with an end. So they came up with an ending, and then they started shooting, and they figured that the middle of the film would take care of itself. That's how they made a silent film back then. He was for sure a favorite. People just went to watch Buster Keaton movies just to see the sight gags. Well, next is a Charlie Chaplin film called The Adventurer. It's a short comedy film. It was made in 1917 when Charlie worked at the Mutual Film Company. This was the third film company that he worked at. The first one was the Max Sennett Keystone Studios. This was late 1913. And as the story goes, he didn't have a smooth transition into filmmaking. And the reason for that is Max Sennett didn't want to take much time in plot. He just wanted to have a lot of action, a lot of knockabout type of movement, and that wasn't what Charlie Chaplin was all about. Charlie Chaplin was a perfectionist. He was a genius. Well, after his first film, which didn't turn out too well, it didn't turn out too bad, Max Sennett told Charlie to go into wardroom and come up with something funny. So as Chester Conklin, one of the actors, told the story, Charlie came in while they were all the actors were playing cards, and he sat down at the makeup desk and fiddled around with some mustaches and kind of clipped them a little bit and got some glue and glued that on. And then he got Fatty Arbuckle's large hat and his pants. Fatty Arbuckle was big, real big. He was a tall guy, but he also was wide. And Charlie was about 5'3" tall. So Charlie got a rope and kind of cinched his pants. And he got a right shoe and put it on his left foot and the left on the right. So he looked kind of funny walking around. And he got Chester Conklin's coat, which was too small for him, and the Little Tramp character was born. And then he went out on Mabel Norman's set. She was doing a movie called Mabel's Predicament, and the set was a hotel. And he just started clowning around. And one of the things he did is he managed to get his foot stuck in the cuspidor, and he couldn't get that out. And so Max Sennett said, "Charlie, keep doing what you're doing." And they just started filming Mabel's movie, and of course he stole the show. And that's how the Little Tramp character was born, way back in 1913, somewhere around there. Well, he was almost instantaneously popular, so within 1 year's time he was getting a lot of fan mail, and instead of making or deciding to keep making $150 a week, which was good money back then, he got an offer at Billy Bronco's SNA Studios, Billy Bronco the cowboy, to make $1,100 a week. So he made, I think maybe about 16 or 20 of these films at the SNA company. And then after another year, he moved on to the Mutual Film Company, and this time he made a contract to make 12 of these little gems for $650,000. So in 3 years' time, he did pretty well. And then after that, this was 1917, let's say, in about 3 more years, he was the most famous person in the entire world, more famous than any king or queen or president of the United States. His stature, or his height, I should say, was 5'3", but his stature was so much greater than that. So I'd like to show this film. This is the last film that was released when he was working at the Mutual Film Company. And it's just there's a chase scene in the beginning, there's chase scenes in the middle, and there's chase scenes in the end. Charlie Chaplin discovered those. All right, ladies and gentlemen, clear your throats. We're going to end the program with a sing-along. This is called In My Merry Oldsmobile. Max Fleischer, back in the late teens, the early 20s, first came up with the idea for Follow the Bouncing Ball. And, well, this is my attempt at it. Turn the mic on. Thank you. Johnny Steele has an Oldsmobile. He loves a dear little girl. She is the queen of his gas machine. She has his heart in the world. Now when they go for a spin, you know she tries to learn the auto so. Come away with me, Lucille, in my merry Oldsmobile. Road of life will fly, bowling you and I. Church will swiftly steal, wedding bells will peal. As far as you like with me in my merry Oldsmobile. Love to spark in the dark old park as they go flying along. She says she knows why the motor goes. The spark is awfully strong. Each day they spoon to the engine's tune. Their honeymoon will happen soon. And Lucy with his Oldsmobile, and then he'll follow the crew. Come away with me, Lucy, my merry Oldsmobile. Down the road of life we'll fly, bumbling you and I. To the church we'll swiftly steal, then our wedding bells will peal. You can go as far as you like with me in my merry Oldsmobile. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having me here this evening. I had a terrific time. Again, I love all of this technical support, and I hope you enjoyed the program as well. Thank you so much.